Aloha and welcome back to the week that was. And my goodness, what a week was it! Everything green from here to the moon. I mean, if you were in the stock markets this week, you couldn't have helped but seen your portfolio just fly through the roof. Unless you were in energy. That didn't do very well. Obviously, the stock markets did really well for multiple reasons, and we're going to get into it. Locally, there is not much going on here in Hawaii. The weather's been great. If you get a chance to check out the channel later on today, I put out my very first live, in-person interview with another human being. So I had another person on my podcast today, so please go check that out if you get a chance. I was talking to my longtime friend, Craig, the rancher. Him and I have been talking stories for a long time. He's been my client since I've been cutting hair for who knows how long at this point. But when I first got here to the island, him and I connected, and I've been seeing him almost every month for over a decade and a half at this point. So we had a great conversation today. When you get a chance, go check it out. On the week, though, let's check this out. The U.S. stock markets post a pretty strong week this week. Here we go. The S&P 500 rose about 4.5% for the week, closing at a record high of 7126.06 or 7,126 for the very first time, record high, up 1.2% on the day. It crosses the 7,100 mark for the very first time. Congratulations to everybody. Woo! Imagine some clapping. I gotta get a soundboard in here. The NASDAQ gained roughly about 6.8%, closing at a record 24,468.48, up 1.5 today. It extended its winning streak to 13 consecutive days, longest streak since 1992. Wrap your brain around that for a second. Dow Jones Industrial Average advanced about 3.2%, closing at 49,447 and 43 cents, nearly up 1.8% or 869 points on today. It moved closer to exiting correction territory. Thank goodness, right? We blame Pam for that. Maybe don't tout about it, and it won't fall out of the sky, huh? Don't use your investment stuff as ammo against other people. Just be happy for yourself, and don't attack people with your wealth. Russell 2000 rose 2% today, also hitting fresh highs amid broad participation. Now there are some there were some key drivers for this bull rally. I'm going to be honest, I have no idea what we're necessarily dealing with yet. So I'm hoping we keep going forever and ever, but I said 13 days in a row on the NASDAQ. That is a lot of days in a row, straight up green. So expect Monday to soften a bit. You got to be realistic here. Nothing is ever going to trade in a straight line, right? But key drivers: geopolitical relief on the Iran Strait of Hormuz. Iran announced that the Strait of Hormuz was open again to commercial tanker traffic. So that's huge for everybody. Gas prices, crude oil futures came falling out of the sky from about 100 to roughly around $80. And that is huge, especially for us here locally. We're seeing, what did I see the gas prices at? $5.79, $5.76, $5.79, which is pretty high for our area. It's not the highest in the state, I imagine, but I don't know what that is. Diesel was somewhere about $8, maybe a little bit more. I don't drive a diesel vehicle. You can see why. Even on a regular basis, regular days, normal gas price days, the diesel is still expensive. Now, back to Iran. Iran announced the strait is open. It triggered a sharp drop in oil, about 9%, removing major inflationary and supply shock risk, right? There's a lot of risk on investing happening the last couple of months, right? Because we didn't know what was going to happen. I was doing the same thing. If you've been following along for a little while, you'd know that back in 3 weeks ago, when this setup was a lot more rudimentary than it is now, I was talking about the mines they laid out, and hopefully that's still cleared out and that's not going to cause any dismay. But we got out of this really fast, so expect a bit of a downturn, because naturally that happens. We have to revert to some sort of average, and the average is not 7,100. Stocks obviously soared on the news, with energy stocks retreating while broader sectors, especially tech, industrials, and small caps, rallied. Now, on a personal standpoint, let's check on what the kind of motions or movement I got today in my portfolio. Let's see. So on the day, Robinhood up 12.4%. Now, Robinhood has had a pretty strong week. Let's take a look at that. Now, forgive the... Here we go. Let's check out where that is. Hood. I hope you guys are having a great week. And if you're sitting there watching this later on, I hope you're having a great day, whatever day that is. That isn't right now. All right, let's bring you over to the Robinhood chart. We'll back it up a bit first before we get there. Okay. All right. So as you can see here, Robinhood shares took a huge upswing, and this was prior to the Strait of Hormuz opening up. So what had happened was, if you don't already know this, there was a rule for pattern day trading, and pattern day trading is being able to get in a position and out of position in the same day, or at least the very same trading session. That is usually restricted to people who can afford the $25,000 account minimum. That's not the case anymore. So the SEC removed that minimum and replaced it with a margin buffer, sort of like how we trade futures, I imagine. I'm not quite sure because it hasn't come out yet. This is going to be out in about, I read it the other day, about 45 days from the other day. So maybe about 43 days from now. So we're going to get a lot more retail investors being able to day trade. Now, the minimum is going to be like $2,000, something like that. So that is a huge difference from $25,000. With that being said, day trading is very dangerous. And if you don't understand how to stay in a position more than a day, then you shouldn't be day trading. I get in and out of positions in a day every once in a while. I have clear set rules. If it moves a certain amount in a day, let's throw a ballpark out at, let's say, 10% from where I bought it in the morning to, let's say, close. It's up 10%. Yeah, I'm going to close that position, or at least take some profit. That is a lot of movement in one day. And I'm not a greedy human being. So I'm looking for as much profit as I can take. Because I'm always on the move. That's just how I am, right? I move from here to there. I have my long positions that are just out of my way in a completely different portfolio where I don't even look at it. Sitting in cash, right? So I got I got my alpha account, beta account, and my theta account. We're sitting in my theta account because it has honestly nothing in it. So you won't see any fluctuations. You won't see any positions that I have. I'll just talk about them. But back to Robinhood. So because of that rule change, we're going to get a lot more retail investors being able to move a lot more markets. So that's pretty bullish for Robinhood. But Robinhood is also very smart. They're also rolling out education. And education is huge. Huge, 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 huge. I cannot stress how much that you need to learn before you trade. And if you're going to learn or investigate trade, where you buy it and then learn about it, buy a small amount. Don't be crazy and just go full port on something you don't understand. Even if you sort of understand it, just buy a single share because it's going to go down. But take your profits when you can, right? Don't be greedy. Never, ever. Like if you can project it's got a good long outlook, leave it for that outlook. That's fine. But if it moves a lot in a short period of time, trim, 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 trim. We're not completely back yet. This was a huge swing. I want it to go up. I always want it to go up. But my hope is never right. Like I've been wrong a lot. I want it to go up, it goes down. I want it to go down, it goes up. Right? So I want it to go up. So it's probably going to go down. But I was wrong the last 13 days because it's gone up. And I thought it was going to keep going down. Now I just stayed out of my positions. I picked up a couple new positions as well. What did I pick up this week? A new one called Schrodinger, like Schrodinger cat, right? That caught me. That wasn't hard to not love off the name. Now, don't invest based on the name of something, but this is a medical play, if that sort of makes sense. Here, I'll read you the about section, and I'll pull up the chart. The ticker symbol is SDGR. Now, as I always say, this is not investment advice. I don't recommend anything, but this is a position that I picked up earlier this week on a lead from one of my trading friends. The man hits 900 out of 1,000, so I will buy and investigate from someone I trust that has verified trades. Now, because of Robinhood Social, I can see the receipts on these people, right? So I can see the things they do. I can see the motions they move, and it's easier for me to fit my trust to them, right? Okay, so we got it up here. Schrodinger. Schrodinger Inc. engages in provision of chemical stimulation software solutions for pharmaceutical industry. It operates through the software and drug discovery business segments. The software segment sells software to transform drug discovery across the life sciences industry and to customers in materials science industries. The drug discovery segment offers diverse portfolio of preclinical and clinical programs internally and through collaborations that have advanced to various stages of discovery and development. The company was founded somewhere in 1990. So it's a long-standing company. It is a bit of a sleeper. Now, that was a snorefest of a read. To keep it simple, this company makes or has a way to do, I want to say, using science like physics to model how drugs will affect molecules. Right? I'm trying to keep it really small and really simple because if not, it gets really wordy and extremely boring for you. So with that being said, it can, from what I can imagine, pre-test drugs on molecules using math without having to actually spend on testing, right? And that's just wild to me. So I picked up a little bit of that this week. Next one I picked up was Amtech Systems. Ticker symbol. ASYS. Now, Hawaii is a very humid state. Without the trade winds, we tend to warm up. So forgive me as I completely melt here on camera. Here we go. So MTech Systems, right here at $16.21 a share. So this is a company that deals with manufacturing of semiconductors and capital equipment. It operates through the semiconductor and material and substrate segments. The semiconductor segment involves the designing, manufacturing, selling, and servicing of thermal processing equipment. Now, since the last one was already extremely boring, I'm going to cut this short and keep it real simple. They make things, or they have a company that bakes the materials that make GPUs, that make chips and stuff like that. They're like the wheat factory for people who buy bread or sell bread, right? So they create the wheat, or they take the flour or wheat, turn it into flour so other people can make bread. So this company is I want to say a source, right, for semiconductors. And it's, of course, with anything that's got semiconductors in it, you're going to be dealing with tech, AI. Now, I would have to admit my portfolio is a bit tech heavy, but that's okay because I'm young. My future is going to be tech. I want to see these things come to fruition, so I'm willing to invest in that. Now, a quick note on the side, I also hold Open Door, painfully so, but hey, that's what it is to be a trader. Take your profits, right? It was up at like $10 back when we were at Hood Summit. I took some of that. I was in Vegas. I saw it go up. I'm like, I want some. I'm going to use it or something, right? Who knows? Take the profit. Came down, and I've been trading it basically for income, because it's basically kind of traded between $4 and $6, $4 and $5.50 even. So doing covered calls basically for the job right now, because I stopped doing XSP, which is an index trading, small version of SPY index, because at that point it was just going up and down, up and down. I couldn't get a single signal, and I was catching lots of negative downside. So I figured, you know what, I'm done. We'll take a break, and I'll come up with a different solution for the income side, because I need to make income, not because I need necessarily lots of money. I need to make income because that's what keeps me from touching the other stuff, the stuff that I don't want to touch, the stuff that I should hold on to forever and never look at it again. So I need to be doing something with my hands. It's part of my psyche, I guess, right? I'm a fidgeter. So I've learned what I can fidget with and profit off of, and that recently has been Open Door. But on that note, Open Door does have earnings coming up, so maybe we cut those covered calls off, right? But we'll see. Because maybe it pulls a Netflix. So if you were following Netflix stock, they had earnings the other day as well, and they did not go up after earnings. They came down, like down. Well, like 5 to. Why am I guessing? Let's take a look at Netflix real fast. Netflix. Now, I'm not a holder of Netflix. It's not my vibe. That's it. Because I know that I'm going to be buying the subscription, so I'm not going to invest in the stock. It's just not entertainment's not my sector. Now, Netflix is going to be a strong company for a long time because of their model. And I've been using Netflix since they mailed you the discs. Now, if you're old enough to remember what that means, is you would go on to Netflix.com, pick your movie, and they would mail it to your house. How wild is that? They also had one called Gamefly, too. Same concept, but for video games. So I got to watch Netflix come to life. I was working at Blockbuster at the time. This was before I started doing hair. I was about 15-ish, or maybe right before 16. It doesn't really matter. I seen Netflix just destroy that company. And from what I heard, Netflix offered to partner with Blockbuster, and Blockbuster, being the prideful hubris company that they were at the time, said, nah, we got the market cap, we got the market share. Why should we partner with some janky people sending discs to people's houses? And then streaming came along. And then people loved getting discs to their houses. They didn't have to leave the house for their movies anymore. And then poof, there goes Blockbuster. We could be sitting with Blockfix right now, or Netbuster. No, that's both terrible names. But back to the charts. As you can see, this is the point they had earnings right here. 108.94. That's pretty good. Now, if you were following Netflix at all, they also recently had a stock split. So they're over $1,000 a share, and then they had a 10-to-1 split. So each one share you had was now 10 shares worth, for easy math, $100 a piece. So it popped off, and then when it split, it came down to 75. Now, during that 75 time here, they were dealing with the Warner Brothers deal. That's what it was. And Paramount and that whole debacle. I still have no idea who owns Warner Brothers. Do you know who owns Warner Brothers? Leave me a comment if you have any idea at this point. But after that deal fell through, Netflix got a basically departure bonus or contract break bonus, and that's where we went from 75 to 95. So that's pretty high. And then we steady grind for and then boom, earnings, poof, right back down to, actually, if you look at it though, we're right here at this nice average, right? This seems to be kind of a nice area for Netflix to hang out for a second, because it kind of ran up on nothing. As you can see, it was like up, 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 up. These are day candles, right? So every single day in a row it went up, and then reverts back down to its averages. Now, this dump off was most likely due to the co-founder of Netflix, as well as board member, leaving the company. So that puts a lot of stress on guidance, and guidance is huge. Like, that's one of the big things for me as an investor when I look at a company. I could give two shits, honestly, about what the company actually does at the point that I find it. What I want to know is who's in charge, how they lead, and how the people who they lead respect them and talk about them. Now, obviously, if it's a big company, you can't go around and publicly talk crap about your CEO, but you can still see motions through people's actions, right? For instance, if a CEO's not treating their employees well, those employees will go out and make fools of themselves and maybe publicly get seen making fools of themselves. But if you believe in a company and you know that the company believes in you back, you represent them by being good out in public. For me, I don't work for any company. I have no affiliation with anybody. I don't get paid a single dollar other than the investments that I make on my own. So when I support or represent a company, when I wear a hat or a shirt, I know I'm representing them, and I want to do a good job, right? I don't want to be getting into some nonsense in a Van Eck hat, or I don't want to be getting into a bar brawl in a Robin Hood t-shirt. That's nonsense, right? So with Netflix, if or any company I invest in, if the guidance is poor, the people who work for that CEO tend to also be poor acting humans too. So you can kind of see those tea leaves ahead of time. I wasn't invested in Netflix. I didn't know this was happening. So if you did know and you sold out at 108, congratulations. Now, next up. Oh, RVI. RVI is doing pretty good. It kind of just went a little bit sideways for the week. Now, I'm going to take a shot in the dark here and say that a lot of Robinhood investors who invest in Robinhood stock are also RVI investors. Now, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm seeing a little bit of traffic for RVI on Robinhood Social. If you're on Robinhood Social, hit me up. There's a lot of new features going on now. As you can see, this is not a very good big chart because RVI is like a baby. And we're getting look, our very first little average. How cute is that? Bollinger Bands finally showed up. Ro- like I said, so Robinhood shareholders probably hold some RVI as well. So with Robinhood flying, maybe we're not getting as much need for long shots, I guess, right? Moon shots, because this just IPO'd, and this year is just going to be a slog of IPOs, and like even I would say everyday individuals, not necessarily everyday traders like you and I, are talking about SpaceX IPO, asking me, like I was talking to Craig about that today after the pod about SpaceX IPO, and he was asking like, what do you think it'll be evaluated at? I was like, shoot, trillions? I don't know. It's massive. And then so I mean, who knows what that could be? You could end up with a share price of like what, $1,000 a share right there at IPO. I don't feel like trying to buy 1,000 or buy 100 shares of that. Like my starter pack started 100 shares, right? I can't buy a starter pack. I don't buy that damn thing, right? I don't feel like spending that much on SpaceX. But there are other ways to expose yourself to this SpaceX IPO, like a closed-end fund. I'll pull up. I want to say it's DXYZ. I'm going to take a shot in the dark. Yeah, nailed it. Destiny Tech 100. So this is a company this is a closed-end fund, but this closed-end fund actually invests already in SpaceX. Now, I had a position in here last year and it just wasn't going well, right? So I exited that position. Luckily, it wasn't down here at 23 where it is. It flew up, right? So this pump right here was probably March 25th. Yeah, okay. So it was right around the time where SpaceX announced that they were going to IPO. So as you can see here on the chart, we got a huge rally out of DXYZ, and then it came down to a means, but it's still up here pretty high off the lows. So if you wanted to expose yourself to SpaceX without having to wait, this is a decent vehicle. Now, the allocation of this portfolio to SpaceX is probably not massive, but it is massive enough for it to move the stock price when news on SpaceX comes out. Like maybe if you were to check, maybe every one of these large green candles is a positive news day for SpaceX. All right. And those are I hold a few other things like Node and HODL, right? Both by Van Eck, as well as VG. Oh, VG. Why not? Let's just go cry for a second. VG. So Venture Global is a liquid natural gas company. It still is. It's my energy play, but it ran a whole lot during the overall crisis, right? So I got in somewhere about $6. Venture Global. So somewhere in here is where I got it. I caught wind of this during a podcast by Matt Money. I'll leave his information in the comment section below. He was talking about it and he was very knowledgeable about it, and I was already looking for some energy exposure without going for the traditional stuff. And thank goodness I didn't go into like oil or something like that at that point, because, well, I would have been doing really well, but then I would have I don't know what I would have done if I touched oil. Not my thing. But being exposed to Venture Global, it ran. And then it came down to a reasonable average. But, oh man, talk about a turnaround. All of a sudden, poof, 17 down. But long-term wise, this is still a great play. On a local stand front, liquid natural gas is going to be probably a new energy source for the Hawaiian Islands. We're partnering with Japan, if I'm not mistaken. Now, check me on this. By all means, just jump in the comment section and troll it out if I'm wrong. So that's great for Hawaii, because we need some other source of energy. Being in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, it's all shipping and airplanes. So and fuel is what powers most of the diesel generators that power the electricity that you're looking at right now. Like, I'm not on solar at my house. This is straight up diesel power electricity. So because of that, we're pretty reliant and sensitive to oil swings like this. So I was lucky that I pulled up Venture Global before this all kind of started destroying all the gas prices. It sort of worked as a portfolio hedge by accident because everything else was falling out of the sky. Robinhood was down at like $58, maybe $60. Like that's the times where you're like, oh, clench, buy 10 more, buy 5 more, right? Every time you're pissed off and sad, you're like, just buy 5 more because you're gonna be happy you did because you love the company, you understand what you bought, and you're like, this is nonsense. This has got nothing to do with the company being bad. This has all got to do with the macroeconomics being god awful, right? So just know what you hold and just hold on to it. Like, I wasn't looking for a short term, like no. Double, right? Almost doubled its price. I wasn't looking for that. I was just looking for some energy exposure because I'm looking for different exposures because I pick stocks. And watch other people pick stocks and then buy, then investigate, and then see if I want to stick with it. Like, one of the harder holds I'm dealing with right now, and a lot of you are dealing with it too, so we're all in the same boat, is BMNR. Oh, Tom Lee, pump my bags. But strong company, strong outlook, great idea. Ethereum's going to be here forever, right? I'm not going to talk about BMNR because there's so much content out there about it. Go check out Dr. Roy at Crossroads or Tevis. They just had Bootleg Friday today. Great pod as usual. Go check them out if you want literally any information about BMNR, Air Test Systems, which is great. That's doing incredibly well. I hold that too. Air Test Systems and Intel, just like, my God, you're just making me rich. But go check out those two if you want to hear about BMNR, as well as SOFI. So SOFI's got earnings coming up too, and they had a pretty bullish price target. Let's take a look at SOFI real fast. Now, if you're not familiar with SOFI Bank, it's a, well, it's in the title, bank, but it's a bank that's really popular with the young investors. I have a super tiny position in SOFI, and then one of the ETFs I hold also has SOFI in it as well. So I want SOFI to go up, but I'm pretty, I want to say pragmatic about SOFI. Like, I want this company to go up for me, of course, but my position's tiny. But I want this company to go up for the people who believe in it, the people who believe in Anthony Noto, the CEO of SOFI. That being said, yeah, here comes the shoe drop. That's a pretty violent swing. Well, I don't want to say swing, but that's a pretty volatile chart for a bank. We want our banks to be a little bit chiller than that, right? A little bit less volatile. Let's draw a comparison chart over it. I'm going to pick, what do we think? Visa or Ally? Well, I said Visa first. Let's do Visa. Let's see what kind of motions we get out of Visa. Okay. Let's back it up. Aha. Okay. So here we go with the life. I think this is maybe close to the lifetime chart for SOFI. But then the orange line, get out of here, dude. Okay. So the orange line is the overlay of Visa, the credit card company. Oh, they're a credit card company, not a bank. Come on. Okay, hold on. Well, they still sort of deal with the same sector, right? And they kind of moved at roughly the same amount, but it trades below. But let's find something comparable. Let's do, Ally Bank. That's the only one I can think of. I have Ally Bank as well, but I use mostly Robinhood banking. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Okay, see, so as you can see, the green line here is Ally Bank, and it trades a lot less violently than SoFi, right? And some of these motions, because it stayed at a pretty average area, somewhere where SoFi is literally right now, right? Which is really interesting. And maybe we ignore Visa, but it's sort of the same territory. But Ally Bank and SoFi trade at completely different intervals. Like they're wave-based functions, right? So we'll go with intervals. But because of, I want to say, the lack of retail investors, like there's no Ally Bank army, right? Like I don't know of one. Do you? But if there was one, maybe we'd get more violence. But because of the retail investor army that's like backing up SoFi, maybe the swings are more violent because a lot of some of these bulls are young people too, and they have less propensity for pain. They will sell. They will panic and run, right? So this could be the reasoning to. Now, long-term outlook, SoFi's in great condition. There are a couple of motions I don't necessarily believe is a good idea, but people believe in them. They're doing great for student loans in that market. So I want that to work out because we need more successful banks who are looking to take care of younger individuals, looking to give opportunities to the younger generation. And that's why SoFi Bank is very popular. And I'm not going to sell their shares anytime soon. Now, have I been in pain watching them to go down? Yeah, a little bit, but not really. I mean, because I have such a small position in there, it's like pretty trivial. I'm like, oh, SoFi's down. I get a little indicator. I'm like, oh, whatever. Don't matter too much. All right, but condolences to all the BMNR holders. I am right there with you, gang. Now, I'm not as vocal about this on X, just because there's so much of it out there. I'm not out to just talk about what I have. Right? That's not how I move. Right? I'm not that type of person. Because it's important to me, as it should be important to you, to present yourself online as a person that you believe you are. Right? If you're going to go out there and be somebody, make sure that person is the same person you talk to at night in your head. Like, what's the point of lying on the internet? Like, who are you trying to be? Like, keep it simple. Like, every other person on the planet is taken. You're the only one left. Might as well be you. Right? So the way I move on the internet is just mostly to interact with people, learn from people. And I've noticed that being kind and understanding will get you a lot farther than just trying to rage bait people. That's not the type of emotion you should run around the internet with, because you can't sustain that forever, right? You're not being you. You can't be a fake person forever, right? Maybe you can. I don't know. There are lots of accounts out there with non-human faces. And that's okay. I'm not talking about like NFT profile pictures. That's different because the people who are behind those pictures are still posting and doxing themselves. I'm talking about the people who just go out to try to make people angry. Now, I will admit, I can tend to be a little puckish and curt online, but it's more because of my rational nature, not because I'm trying to make you upset. I'm trying to get to the root of the problem with as little words as possible. It's the same way I use AI. Why am I going to ask a long-winded question when a short one would definitely get the response I'm looking for? Now, let's take a look at what's going on next week, because we gotta know, right? Because that's, We can also cover that on Sunday. That's fine as well. Because right now is Friday. Yeah, wow, what a long weekend. 2 pods in a day. Now I'm out here talking to you. All right, let's see what some other factors coming into the markets this week. Okay, so Q1 corporate earnings is also this week, so that's very bullish. Q1 earnings season is underway, and well, with Netflix, all right. Generally supportive. Strong results and guidance from big tech AI names helped sustain momentum. Netflix dipped, like we talked about, on guidance, like we also talked about, but overall sentiment remained positive. Well, duh, where the heck are they going? Sector rotation. Tech and growth stocks led, but gains were broad. Small caps and value areas also participated as risk appetite improved. So we're somewhere in neutral, right? So we have the fear and greed index, right? We were in the fear. Now we're somewhere in the greed to neutral, or extreme fear to greed and neutral, in like 2 weeks. Okay, I haven't been doing this forever and ever, but that is a lot of movement out of a big index in a short amount of time. Got me a little concerned, but it's fine. We ride it out. Things get cheaper, I buy more. Things get expensive, I take profits. That's the game. The VIX eased further, thank goodness. It was okay, so maybe 2 pods back, I think we were talking about the VIX. Right before it dropped down to under 20, it was at 25 on that bottom white line. Thank goodness, because once the VIX is down, then we can support a more growth market. We can start looking at companies for what they are, not how much their costs have gone up because of the overall crisis. So I'm grateful for that. Looking ahead to the week, April 20 to 24th, focus shifts more to ongoing Q1 earnings, including major banks and tech, with potential Fed speakers and retail sales data in the mix. Analysts note the easy part of the rally may be behind us, but strong profit margins and AI optimism continue to underpin valuations. That was brought to you by CNBC. Overall, still bullish. Not optimistic, straight up bullish. Like, these are followed by technicals. We're in a decent uptrend, but expect a retest, right? Because we got to go up to come down to go back up. That's just how it goes. I did recently this week see Tom Lee's projections for the year, up to maybe 2,300 at the high, the next upcoming high, and then recorrect to maybe 6,700, and then back up to maybe 7,700 in Q4, which is very bullish. But he's a perma bull. Steph has said that a couple times. Tom Lee's a perma bull. Dude's the GOAT, though. Mad respect. He's taking over Orbs, too, so congratulations to Orbs. I think he's the chairman of that. I've got a couple of calls out on that. Got rinsed on it back in December. Doesn't matter. Got my butt kicked on it back in December. Took it as, like, just took the L. Just take the L. Because after that, I redeployed that in January into some bullish stuff like gold and rare metals. And those just flew off. I like Remix because it's easy to remember. REMX. It's by VanEck as well. And they're a strategic metals ETF. Recommended. Because people need stuff to make stuff, right? That's the skinny. But as I said with earlier, we got record highs. We had 13 consecutive days on a NASDAQ, longest winning streak since 1992. S&P 500 closed for a record high for the 3rd straight day in a row. Now, if I was 2024, Colin, I'd be like, yeah, put more money. It's never going to go down. No. Pragmatic, Colin? Child. No. Hell no. Wait. Just ride what you got for a second. Maybe put out a couple of loose naked calls. But bruh, don't be buying at highs way above your entry level. That's craziness. Check the moving averages first. That's it. And wait for it to come to there. And if it's under there, maybe it's going to go up. Check the fundamentals. Okay. All right. Now, let's see if there's anything coming up for the weekend real fast. We'll double check that. Now, as I'm looking up what's going to come up for the weekend, I did some predictions this week on some mention markets. So if you don't know what predictions are, they are binary contracts that you can buy a yes or no on any question mostly that you can think of. Will it rain in Hawaii today? Actually, that's not a market. Will it rain in California today? How much of it? Blah, 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 that kind of thing. But I traded on a couple of Trump speaks this week, and I made out actually. There were a couple of funny ones, like he said DoorDash at the Las Vegas rally. I was really surprised, but not really. So when I do mention markets, I try to conceptualize the reason they would say the word, and a lot of high level mention market traders most likely do the same thing. But it's all about trying to consider how the person you're trying to predict will speak has already spoken, and if they will continue that train or go on to a different train. And with President Trump, he tends to talk about the things he's done well and not talk about the things he hasn't done well unless he's going to blame somebody else about it. So with it being a rally, with it being about no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, that I would imagine he wanted to talk about other great things that were happening. So DoorDash wasn't actually that long of a shot. I think it was priced in at 26 cents when I picked it up, and it closed. So that was one of my more long shots. Maybe not all of them panned out. I think I got 4 out of 7, but the other 3 were like crypto. Why did I think he was going to say crypto in Vegas? That's just like they don't want that. Vegas is getting its butt kicked economically because, well, prediction markets are way better. I don't have to overspend to go to Vegas to predict anything anymore. And there's no house odds, so I don't feel like I'm getting shilled on the way in. Right? You go to Vegas, you sit in a slot machine, they give you a bunch of free stuff. Drinks, alcohol, free. But nothing's free. You're paying somehow. Now, with prediction markets, there's no incentive. You either pick it up or don't. The UI is very intuitive, so I appreciate that. Makes it a lot easier to understand, but also can get you in trouble. On the prediction market and Kalshi front, they have a event coming up later in the month. It's called Timeless. With the 20 minutes of research I did trying to guesstimate what that was, I ran across a post, and they were talking about Timeless being a perpetual market for predictions. Sort of like buying a stock, I think. Like you buy a stock, and it's yours till you sell it. Maybe you'll be able to buy something on predictions, and it's yours till you sell it. It doesn't have an expiration. Because they're kind of like, they're clear swaps, right? So they are like options or futures. They have an end date. But maybe they won't soon. That's kind of nice, actually. I'm really excited to see what comes of that, because that means people can have positions into perpetuity. That means people can maybe even bequeath their positions to their children somehow if they're held that long. I don't know. I'm speculating in the dark here, but look forward to that. I think it's April 27th. Also later on this month is Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas. That is 10 days, I think. 10 days out, roughly about the 27th as well. That is a low chance of attendance for me. Mostly because, I mean, I want to. But when I think about why I want to, it's mostly to go and try to hang out with my Robinhood friends. So that's not Bitcoin, so I can wait. I'd much rather take a trip to see maybe the actual hmm headquarters. There we go. Like go to Silicon Valley or something like that. Take a tour. I'd rather do that than I don't know. Bullish for Bitcoin. I want it to go great, but I don't know if I'd get too much out of it really, other than alpha. But I get so much alpha from my friends. Like how much alpha can you take? Like you just end up getting clouded into paralysis and never taking a position, or taking far too many. Like you can't. I mean, maybe you can if you're a hedge fund, but like trying to run 100 positions at once is wild. Keep it manageable. How are you supposed to do that? All right. Now one last double check. Let's see if anything going on for the weekend. Any weekend news? Now for my weekend. I'll be at the salon tomorrow, working on a couple of longtime guests per usual, and then on Sunday we're gonna see Jim Brickman. Now, if you don't know who Jim Brickman is, dude's got the voice of an angel, and he's also a great pianist. He's written a lot of the songs that you've probably heard, but had no idea that it wasn't written by someone or the person who was singing it. So he's coming to my little town here in Kamuala, going to the Kahilu Theater for like a one-off afternoon show on Sunday. I'm so excited. So my history with Jim Brickman is my wife and I attended Jim Brickman. It was one of the first fancy dates I attended with my wife way back in the day. And I'll always remember it and cherish those moments. And I'm really excited to take my son to see Jim Brickman. And this is 14, 15 years ago was the last time I seen Jim Brickman. So I'm elated. So that's on my weekend news. I hope you guys attend if you're in town. Please go see Jim Brickman. I don't think it's going to be too crowded. And man, that dude deserves a large, loud audience. If I have to be the only loud guy in the room, I will. He'll hate me. But I don't care because he deserves it. Now, with geopolitical developments and ceasefire going through, there's pretty much nothing but optimism on the weekend. There's, from what I can see here, there aren't any meetings coming up. Lebanon and Iran spoke, and they haven't spoken in a very long time. So that's great, bullish for everybody. Because we want cheap energy costs. We want people to get along. We want maybe a different route so the Hormuz doesn't get clogged again. Doesn't really matter. We'll get to that day when we get to that day. Okay, focus shifts back to fundamentals this coming week because of earnings. Tuesday, we got U.S. retail sales for March. Thursday, Friday, we got preliminary PMI data, manufacturing and services. For the U.S., Eurozone, UK, and Germany. We also got jobless claims, business inventories, and pending home sales. No Fed meetings. China interest rate decision Monday. Various CPI releases for Canada, New Zealand, UK. So nothing too big going on over the weekend. I think this is going to be one of the first weekends we can kind of just relax and not expect some random truth post or tweet to just ruin our weekend. I'm looking forward to not having to try to hedge on Kalshi, that the stock market will go down Monday because there's not really a way I can do anything on a Saturday, right? So I'm looking forward to a really chill weekend, seeing Jim Brickman, hanging out with my family. I've been feeling real productive lately, feeling real inspired. I'm grateful I got to do my very first interview with a person. Now, there's a lot of things that I would change. The content was great. So if you could just listen to it and not look, I think you'll have a great time. But there's a lot of things that just wasn't going right. And it was an impromptu thing. So, Greg, if you're seeing this, thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate you being willing to talk to me randomly after getting your haircut in my driveway. With that being said, I want to wish you guys a wonderful weekend. And as always, farewell, ahui ho, stay safe, and I'll see you on the porch.